Welcome to this week's edition of the Bridal Concierge Diaries. This week we're visiting RSVP London, a lovely lady called Lucy Clemson who specialises in luxury bespoke stationery. Lucy, thank you very much for inviting us all here today.
Thank you for coming to the studio.
Today we're going to be looking at all the different wonderful bespoke invitations that you've created previously. And we're also going to be talking about the design process in which you use. So why don't you talk us through a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in the wedding industry?
I started out designing birthday invitations and invitations to product launches, that kind of thing, not specifically weddings. And it wasn't until Condé Nast Brides got in touch with me a couple of years ago, asking me to send them a few samples for them to photograph for the magazine.
It's fantastic.
Thank you. That I'd really considered it, so I put some together and sent them off, and they were then featured in a couple of issues, and the inquiries started flooding in from there, really.
What personal touches can be added through stationery, and what have you done in the past?
I think endless personal touches can be added through stationery, and I think the things I've done most that are the favourite way I've done that are probably the mini newspaper invitations.
Wow, let's have a look at that.
Thank you. So these are bespoke mini newspapers I created. They're a great way of getting across lots of personal information about the couple. So the headline announces the wedding as front page news, and the inside is filled completely with articles about the bridal party, the couple's friends and family, how they met.
What advice do you have for brides in the planning stages of their wedding?
I'd probably say don't get too caught up in what's hot at the moment and what's trendy. It's got to reflect you as an individual, and you've got to love your stationery, not just for it to be super fashionable but you're not 100% feeling it.
How much of my budget should I set aside for stationery?
I'd say probably between £2,000 and £3,000.
Okay, and what does that include?
That would be for a full wedding package, so you'd have save the dates, invitations, orders of service and thank yous.
Fantastic. So now we're going to be talking about the different types of processes that Lucy uses to create her wonderfully bespoke stationery.
There are so many different processes that can be used. Digital is one of my favourites, and it's because the colours are just so vivid. Here's an invitation I created to a party with the theme One Night in Rio. So they were printed digitally to get a really nice bright colour, and then individually hand finished with green and yellow feathers in the colours of the Brazilian flag, and purple and silver sequins, also keeping with the colours in the flag. Then there's die cut, and you can have a lot of fun with die cut. This is an invitation I created for my diamond merchant client, and it involves die cutting. So the line we used was, "Let us find the missing piece in your collection," one of the pieces on the back, and then a puzzle piece which pops out of the card.
So what does die cut actually mean?
Die cut, an actual die, a metal shaped die, is custom made to the exact requirements of the client's invitation. So that can be a heart shaped invitation or a round one like you have here, again with the centre popping out detail. That would all be done by metal die, and that's custom made just for the project.
Let's move on now to talk about some of the more well-known clients that you've had, because you've had a few, haven't you?
A few well-known clients. I'm very discreet, and that's one of the reasons they come to me, so I can't always go into detail. But I've worked with some well-known fashion designers, and one of my commissions was a royal commission. And one of the names you probably would have heard of is Emma Forbes, the TV presenter. She's one of my favourite clients. These were the invitations I produced for the launch of ForbesStyle.com. They each comprise of 3 different pages, and each one is printed on both sides. So it's a great way of getting across lots of information, but whilst being able to keep the idea that the invite looks uncluttered and simple.
A lot of brides are surprised at the cost of wedding stationery. So why is bespoke wedding stationery so expensive?
The thing with bespoke wedding stationery is that it's made exactly to your specifications from the off. So a whole range of design ideas will be created just based on the criteria that the bride has given me. Then we begin artworking. You know, all of this is even before the actual invitations have even been printed. And then once they have been printed, there's often a huge amount of hand finishing that goes into the invitations, which is incredibly labour intensive. I mean, I have an example here. This is a die-cut invitation that I made in a hand-finished box. So each box was finished with brightly coloured trim around the edges and some fringing on the bottom of the box, which then opens up to reveal a three-part die-cut invitation. Each of the hand shapes is created using the die, hand-finished with a gold metal eyelet at the base, and then Swarovski crystals in different sizes were applied by hand individually to each piece.
That's it for this week's Bridal Concierge Diaries. I'd like to say a huge thank you to Lucy for inviting us here to the RSVP studio. If you would like to go on to see Lucy's fantastic, fabulous bespoke work, please log on to www.rsvplondon.com. Otherwise, we'll see you next week for the next instalment of the Bridal Concierge Diaries.